Problem statement. A large variety of people in Laos are unable to speak English. In particular, teachers and students are faced with problems in learning English as a second language. Therefore, there is an opportunity in the market for the education system to learn English. Service. Expatrans is a company that provides experienced translators to assist companies with language barriers to converse. Expatrans is partnering up with UNICEF to highlight the importance of the education system in Laos. They will provide a department of translators to work closely with the staff and students of schools in Laos in order to learn the basics of English. Expatrans will be significant to Laos because they will have the ability to connect the dots with teachers' language boundaries. Teaching staff will then be able to educate their students on speaking English, which will assist their future endeavours and heighten their education and skills. The strengths of Expatrans involve reaching a wider audience, which will enable an opportunity to broaden students' networking skills. Another strength for Expatrans is to understand cultural identities and differences. Translation helps in cutting across language barriers and interacting with people in various countries. UNICEF supports an education program for children in Laos. The organisation is working closely to support all children to have an opportunity to access their right to an education. To further these goals, UNICEF have partnered up with Expatrans in order to enhance the students' education with the opportunity to learn the basics of English.
One of the world's poorest and least developed nations, Laos is overwhelmingly agricultural, with 85% of the population still engaged in subsistence farming. Because industrialization is minimal, Laos imports nearly all the manufactured products it requires. Under the government's decentralization management, education in Laos is financed mainly through government expenditure, with responsibility in theory shared between the central and 16 provincial governments. Revenues for education comes from different sources such as the central government, the provincial governments, communities, and other domestic sources and foreign agencies. Labor disputes have so far been infrequent, and this separate economic situation means that workers have little bargaining power. Children under the age of 15 are forbidden by law from working, but many children work for their families in farms or in shops due to extreme economic hardship. Laos' economy was particularly dependent on Thailand, source of 42% of its foreign investment, as well as 45% of import and 37% of export purchase, which was severely affected by the financial crisis. In late 2004, Laos gained normal trade relations with the United States, which allowed local producers to export at lower tariffs. Capacity development for local education leaders is certainly one of the most important challenges and a fundamental component for implementing effective decentralized education management. Its effectiveness is crucial for the sustainability of the government's decentralization policy. 9 of 10 schools have to rely on off-budget resources from donors, non-government organizations, parents, and communities to cover their operating costs. In looking at the situation of education financing, it is apparent that educational budget support is by no means guaranteed. As a result, school budgets are stripped to a bare minimum. Many remote communities assume the entire operations and maintenance burden. Teachers and students have been severely affected, especially those who are in less well-off areas. More than 90% of teachers survived report that their salary is inadequate to cover minimum household living expense. Most teachers hold multiple jobs to make ends meet. In addition, schools have few teaching and learning resources because of low public funding. Most schools are poorly equipped. The disparities are especially pronounced between urban and rural areas, where many schools lack basic facilities and teaching materials and an adequate supply of textbooks.
A recent study conducted by the MacroThink Institute shows that currently in Laos, there's a lack of confidence in learning a foreign language attributed to several notable reasons. These include insufficiently trained teachers. For example, they use the Lao language when teaching, so they can't perform well to attract the interest of the students. The students fearing that they make mistakes due to lacking foundations and being surrounded in an only Lao language speaking environment with no practicing facilities. However, we are seeing an increased demand for skilled English teachers in Laos, because although Laos is amongst Asia's smallest and poorest nations, it is one of the world's fastest growing economies, with the World Bank estimating the economy to maintain steady growth rates at around 7% between 2017 and 2019. This, combined with the reasons of wanting to help achieve one of Laos' national socio-economic development plan objectives of graduating out of the UN's class of least developed countries by 2020, leads the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade to report significant contributions in foreign aid to Laos by Australia, providing $42.3 million in total official development assistance to Laos in 2017 to 2018. As part of Australia's foreign aid efforts, 3 objectives were set out in an aid investment plan, with 2 being especially relevant to our BOP service, Expert Trans. Objective 1 aims for more disadvantaged girls and boys complete a quality basic education, while Objective 2 aims to improve Laos human resources through scholarships, training and organisational capacity building. A strategy that can integrate Expert Trans into Laos education is to have volunteer foreign aid workers speaking a language other than the Laos people speak, using the service whilst working in conjunction with local teachers in rural areas. This avoids a foreign teacher conflicting with the local language and culture, which will in turn be able to assist in alleviating the lack of education for school children. In line with Objective 1 in Australia's aid investment plan, Expert Trans will target its usage on developing a solid foundation for the education of primary school children, since they are the main players in the development of Laos' economy. Whether it be teachers using the service in the school curriculum or the direct student engagement to enhance student learning outside of school hours, the service aims to instill students with the will and interest to continue with their studies from a young age, and possibly expand their skills into overseas opportunities, as the Laos economy relies heavily on its trade industry in creating more employment opportunities. Using its contributions, Australia has in previous years supported 217 new teacher trainees, including 140 women from disadvantaged remote areas, to successfully complete their first year of teacher training, and helped 30 qualified people undertake a tertiary study in Australia. Therefore, statistically, there are many chances for Expert Trans to succeed based on Australia's foreign aid contribution to Laos alone. To address overall foreign aid objectives and the concerns voiced by the Laos people relating to English services.